Yes, everybody is already in. Yes, exactly. And you can either start with last month's zoning hearing, or if you wanted to back up further and talk about, your general experience with the Penn Township Zoning Board or another government agency. Oh, well, I can hear you. Does another person in the chat? I mean, I feel like yeah, everybody else can hear you, Jillian. Oh, okay, fair enough. And while you're thinking, the only other thing I was going to ask Jillian to add was that her and Protect PT were having success in the Penn Township Zoning Board prior to a lawsuit that sort of tensed up the zoning board, and since then it's been a lot more difficult to sort of talk about these issues
Mhm.
in that regard. The only thing I was going to ask about. And again, I completely agree with everything that Jillian had to say. And I think the main point of this evening is going to be, you're talking about what exactly are they doing when they propose a gas well or a compressor station in your town. It's far more complicated than digging a hole and connecting it to a pipeline.
Right.
So we're really going to talk about some of the complex technology that's used at these sites,
Yeah.
solutions for them. And this is really aimed at, when you're communicating with your local government about a situation like this, you not only have people to reach out to, but you also have your own information to really describe some of this. So we'll try to use as much plain language as possible. And I'm going to share this presentation. Everything has links to it. So we're going to get started.
And just real
this
quick,
is a glycol dehydrator.
Can you hear me
which
okay?
is one of many. Now I can't hear you at all, Jillian.
You can't hear me? Okay.
No, now you're good. Now you're good.
Am I okay? I am trying to work out, I'm so sorry, I'm trying to work out the audio here on the end of you know what we'll do is we're going to post this again. We'll post it now. You're coming through the live stream. Okay. Can you hear me still, Russell?
Oh, you just went really low, Jillian. Yeah, we should probably just go ahead and then post the video later.
Okay, we'll do that. Okay, so go ahead, Russell. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. So yes, this is a glycol dehydrator, which is one of the complicated pieces of technology we're going to talk about tonight. And its purpose is a sort of unique in the national gas drilling operation. And it's one of the reasons why regulations about this technology are behind. It would be far easier to regulate the gas industry if it was uniform across the nation. But just like coal formerly, gas takes different forms in different regions, even within the state of Pennsylvania. So that's one of the reasons why technology regulation falls by the wayside, becomes much more complicated, because all gas drilling is not created equal. And this is a map from our friends at Frac Tracker. And again, I'm going to be sharing all these links as we go along. So this is what's referred to as the shale play in the state of Pennsylvania. All these dots are different well sites. Compressor stations are triangles. If we have time later, we'll talk about an interesting disposal well situation that Protect PT is engaged in right now. The red and black dots are oil and gas wastewater disposal wells. But like I was saying, we'll talk about this a little more later. Even just within the state of Pennsylvania, there are different kinds of gas, and it actually directly mirrors the different kinds of coal. In the northeastern region, we had anthracite coal, and just like that, we have what's referred to as dry gas. And in the southwestern region of the state, I'm getting my notator up, we have what's referred to as wet gas. And in the southwest, we had bituminous coal as opposed to the anthracite. And then if you look at gas drilling in the Midwest, it's really much more tied to oil drilling than it is in the state of Pennsylvania, even though we still do some oil drilling. And I think to really, pull back and go big picture on this, the reason why the gas industry has had such a boom, and it's really the part two of the boom that started happening in the early 2010s, when hydraulic fracturing, commonly known as fracturing, was put forth, invented, whatever you want to call it. For the first couple centuries of fossil fuel use, oil drilling, coal digging, natural gas methane was strictly viewed as a waste product. It was just something that was dangerous. It was a real risk. That's why, they had to ban smoking in coal mines because natural gas would just happen when they were down there, and it happens in the same way when you're drilling for oil. So traditionally, when people at the national level talk about flaring, gas flaring, they usually think of the gas flaring that has to happen when you're drilling for oil, because there's this other substance that you need to get rid of. But that's not really the case in the state of Pennsylvania, and it's really related to glycol dehydrators. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. So that's the map from Frac Tracker. And this is a map from Earthworks, which is a really great organization. Everybody we're going to talk to tonight, or talk about tonight, are really great partner organizations. They just came out with this updated oil and gas threat map that actually shows you the populations around gas drilling areas, which is really effective when you're talking about the effects of this with local governments. So we showed the shale play in the state of Pennsylvania, and this is gas drilling across the country. You see a lot of it in Texas. Texas is the #1 gas drilling state. Pennsylvania is #2. The Appalachian region is really where it's heavily happening right now. Is referred to, I believe, as the Permian Basin in Texas, and we have the Marcellus Shale in the state of Pennsylvania. Those are all sort of different geological terms. And then in North Dakota and Wyoming, there are significant gas drilling regions as well. We're going to be talking about the EPA's newly proposed standard for existing oil and gas facilities. And I just wanted to show this. My boss just got this published in WHYY, the NPR affiliate in Philadelphia, just on Saturday. And the reason why I wanted to show this is because, I don't want anybody to think that this is all about just patting the EPA on the back for their new rule. There are definitely upgrades in the EPA rule that could be made, but there's also some really good things in there. And the focus of this op-ed is on the need to monitor at what's referred to as low emitting or low producing wells. And it's really interesting. You may have read about the state of Pennsylvania's sort of similar rule, strengthening air pollution standards for existing oil and gas sites. And it's an interesting division between the state and the federal level. At the state level, we regulate gas wells based on how much gas they're drilling for. So there's what's referred to as a low producing well exemption, which means that if you're drilling for below a threat, if you're producing below a certain number of pounds of gas a year, you don't need to do certain monitoring practices. And the same structure is at the federal level, but it's around how much air pollution. It has no effect on the amount of gas you're drilling for. It's the amount of air pollution you're creating. So it's a more accurate rule in that sense, because the amount of gas you're drilling for is not directly does not directly correlate to the amount of air pollution you create, but there is somewhat of a relationship there. So an interesting division between the state and the federal level. So you'll have, again, you'll have this presentation and be able to read that full op-ed. This is exactly what Jillian was talking about. I published this little letter about my experience in Penn Township in the Pittsburgh Tribune Review a couple of weeks ago. And it was an interesting experience because, like Jillian said, they didn't admit me as an expert. But even in the short time that I spoke with them, I sort of got out a very, very truncated version of what I wanted to say. They asked, well, why are you here? And I'm here to tell you that the technology they're proposing to use at this well will soon be banned by the EPA. And I could go on and on about it. But that was really all I came there to say. And that was out in the meeting. And then after that, they just sort of concluded that they did not want to hear about that. So it was an interesting experience. And we're going to explain the whole system of intermittent bleed pneumatic controllers. That and glycol dehydrators are the main two technical things we're going to talk about tonight. A few others, but that'll all be explained later.
Can I add one
and
thing? Can you hear me okay, Russell?
no, you need to hit that echo button again.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Great.
Okay. So one thing I just wanted to mention, with the Penn Township hearing, I feel that a lot of local municipalities have a lot more power than they think. And I just want to mention that because, so our local municipality, when we started participating in these hearings, 7 years ago, they denied 3 permits, as they should have, because the companies didn't have sufficient evidence that they weren't going to prevent, or that they were going to prevent harm to the community, and not harm us. And so they were denied one after another and after another. And then our local municipality got hit with a $380 million lawsuit. And because of that lawsuit and the tremendous pressure that the oil and gas industry put on our community to either approve or get sued, and we're going to take you for everything. And they named the commissioners directly. They named the zoning hearing board and the township. They all were in the lawsuit. And so this really changed the way that our local municipality, allows these things to go through. And basically everything since then has been approved. And I just want to tell anybody that's listening that is with a local municipality, you have more power than you think you do. And, it's really hard to not cave to the pressure, especially when you're dealing with a lawsuit. But it's important because what Russell's going to share with you is just, it's the way of the future. And it's what they're going to have to do anyway. So they might as well just do it, right? They might as well just do what they're supposed to do and do a good job.
Yeah, that it can really start to scare people when you sort of individually name people in lawsuits like that. It's even scary for the township. Limited budgets, these gas drilling operations they anticipate having legal fees. Zoning boards do not anticipate being sued by organizations like that, nor do they have the funds to deal with that. But yeah, I agree with you. When I first read that Penn Township zoning ordinance, I was really impressed. I was like, whoa, this is extremely protective. This is going to come in handy when we're talking. But yeah, it's sort of they're not wanting to enforce their own zoning ordinance, which is something we see all the time with different levels of government. But just to put some of the different technologies that we're going to talk about in context, this is from a report from Clean Air Task Force, which is another great organization that we work for. Just so you can see the different effect that some of these different technology upgrades are going to have. Obviously, the changes in the pneumatic equipment are way up there. And this whole report amounts to a 65, if the recommendations in this report were taken and implemented by EPA, you could reduce air pollution from the gas industry 65% by 2025. And a lot of these are fixes that could happen very quickly, as Jillian mentioned. Like, why wait till you have to when you could even, save money? We're going to talk a lot about all of these pollution reductions, and it's a sort of an odd position that you're in as an environmentalist. All of these things would actually increase gas industry profit, because the big thing to think about when you're talking about the gas industry, especially compared to coal, the pollutant and the product are the same. That's a really important thing to understand. The vast majority of air pollution from the gas industry is just from them releasing gas that they can't handle in various storage tanks and pipeline. So the pollutant and the product are truly the same. And the other really interesting thing about that is that single pollutant end product has multiple different pollutants that work in different ways. Gas has its, the dominant aspect of it is methane, which is, 87 times the global warming power of carbon dioxide over a 20-year time period. So it's driving climate change, increasing temperatures, increasing precipitation. And then there's volatile organic compounds in there, which cause smog, which I'll talk about later. And then there's hazardous air pollutants in there, including the known carcinogen benzene. Before we jump into that, I see that someone has raised a hand. Do we want to take a question? Oh, I guess that hand maybe went down. But feel free. I'm viewing the chat as I speak, so feel free to pop questions in the chat, and I will answer those to the best of my ability. So again, this is a good breakdown, and the number one way to reduce pollution from the gas industry is just monitoring and fixing leaks. The gas industry is full of, an infinite amount of valves and gauges, and those things just need to be primed and kept up with. And air monitoring more or less needs to be constant, and we'll demonstrate why that needs to be later on. So we're going to show an interesting video, again, from our friends at Earthworks, and we're talking about air monitoring. And one of the ways that we do that is with what's called a FLIR optical gas imaging camera. So this tracks methane and VOCs. So we're going to show this interesting video. So currently, with some of the technology that's out there, they're required to go look at these facilities maybe once a year, maybe twice quarterly, but that obviously needs to happen more. Jillian, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention real quick.
You need to hit that echo button.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to turn off the broadcast, and we'll just post the broadcast with the full